Senator Rand Paul, who is a doctor by the way, proposes legislation to create a security board to review and approve funding for high-risk life sciences research. We're talking about gain of function, obviously. United States Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, announced Wednesday the Risky Research Review Act, which would establish an independent security board to review and approve high-risk life sciences research projects seeking federal funding. The first of its kind proposal would create a life science research security board within the executive branch responsible for conducting oversight over life sciences research funding across the federal government to protect public health, safety, and national security. If we had this bill in place 10 years ago, we could have prevented the COVID pandemic, he said. The act defines high-risk life sciences research as a research that has a potential dual-use nature or could pose a threat to public health, including gain-of-function research, research involving genetic modification or synthetic creation of potential pandemic pathogens, and activities involving the collection and surveillance of potential pandemic pathogens. Grant applications seeking to conduct research projects that fall into this category would only be able to receive federal funding with approval from the majority of the security board members. The 9-member board, appointed by the president with Senate approval, would include 1 executive director, 5 non-government scientists, and 2 national security experts. The members would serve up to 2 4-year terms and must not be or have been within the past 3 years a federal employee. Under the proposed act, the Security Board would be expected to submit annual reports to Congress and online. On Thursday morning, the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs held an oversight hearing on taxpayer-funded high-risk virus research. Senators listened to testimony from Dr. Gerald Parker, the Associate Dean for Global One Health at the College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Science, Dr. Carrie Wolinitz, Senior Principal and Chair at Lewis Burke Associated Health and Bioscience Innovation Practicing Group, and a former Senate Senior Advisor with the National Institute of Health, Dr. Robert Redfield, former Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and Dr. Kevin Esvelt, Associate Professor at MIT Media Lab. During opening statements at Thursday morning's hearing, Senator Gary Peters, Democrat from Michigan, seemed to express that he may not be opposed to legislation similar to the bill proposed by Rand Paul. He says our expert witnesses really raised to the need for a robust oversight over the wide range of high-risk life science research, both here in the United States and abroad, Peters said. Life science research can be critical to protecting public health and our national security. It helps develop vaccines and improve our diagnostic tests and sharpen our understanding of potential biological threats. This research can be incredibly dangerous, and it puts scientists in contact with harmful pathogens, and they sometimes do not get the necessary training on how to handle them properly, Peters said. If equipment fails or researchers make an innocent mistake, it can carry serious health risks for the broader public. During his opening remarks, Paul stated, over the last 4 years, compelling evidence has emerged supporting the lab origin of the pandemic and unraveling a web of deception, the vast COVID cover-up, he said. So what has been done since the discovery that our government is funding dangerous virus research overseas with little or no oversight? The answer is stark and chilling. Virtually nothing, Paul said. In this dystopian universe we find ourselves in, it is our duty to challenge the status quo, to shine a light on the darkest corners of government operations, and to protect the freedoms and lives of the people we serve. Wolinitz defended the federal government's oversight of risky pathogen research. Collectively, while this policy framework may be imperfect and should continue to evolve with the science and current threat landscape, It arguably represents the most rigorous oversight of pathogen research in the world. Wolynets said, if we make it too hard for scientists to conduct and communicate the findings of experiments that expand our knowledge of pathogens, we will be less prepared for the next emerging biological threat. The committee issued a press release announcing the Risky Research Review Act, noting that the funding of such research currently lacks sufficient government oversight, allowing American taxpayer dollars to be spent without appropriate checks. Redfield called the proposed act a very important bill and would ensure national security is prioritized when making U.S. life science funding decisions. He called for a moratorium on gain-of-function research. If we had this bill in place 10 years ago, we could have prevented the COVID pandemic, Redfield said. Richard Elbridge, the Board of Governors Professor of Chemistry and Chemical Biology at Rutgers University and Laboratory Director, University of Wageningen Institute of Microbiology, also supported the bill. The gaps in current U.S. oversight of research on potential pandemic pathogens place the U.S. at risk of research-related pandemics with medical, economic, and national security impacts as disruptive and damaging as, or even more disruptive and damaging than, those of the COVID-19 pandemic, Elbridge said. He also wrote a post on X on Thursday saying, the U.S. has zero regulations with force of law for biosafety or biorisk management of research with any pathogen other than smallpox virus. Apart from a requirement to have a biosafety plan, the content of which is left to the discretion of the institution. This is from The Blaze, and it's on DNYUZ. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.